What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, we're going to be installing Entity Framework into our ASP.NET Web API app. If you haven't installed SQL yet, the form of SQL that you're going to be using as a .NET developer, 90% of the time is going to be Microsoft SQL Server. It's a more enterprisey version of Postgres. SQL Server is going to have so many features it will blow your mind, but the biggest reason you want to use SQL Server is because it's probably what you're going to be using at work. So not going to cover how to install SQL Server because it's so simple, but just go to here, download Express, install it just with the regular Express version. You don't need any other type of setting to fool with. And then at the end, it's going to give you the option to install Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. And this is what we're going to use to create the database. And go ahead and install that and pause the video, and we will start once you get it installed. So just go ahead, pause it right here, and then now we're going to actually create the database. So what you want to do, go up here and go to databases, create new database, call it Pokemon Review. You could call it whatever you want to, it doesn't even really matter, and go to OK. So there's no secret to installing it, it's really easy, but once you actually get it installed, you'll see it come up here as almost like a little bucket, and that means you have created a database and it is ready to rock. There's many ways. What we're going to do here is we're going to get what's called a connection string. A connection string is kind of just the way it sounds. It's literally the address for your database. There's many different ways to get the connection string, and this way that I get the connection string is like the easiest. And drop a like down below, because I've never seen anybody else do it this way, and this is literally the easiest way that I've ever seen anybody actually do it. So and it took me probably 6 months of digging through just crazy Stack Overflow posts and just figuring out every way to create a connection string. And this is, like I said, it's probably the easiest way. So drop a like down below, because I'm going to save you a bunch of time and teach you a little hack on how to get your connection string. So go up here, go to Add SQL Server, and you want to add your SQL Server. So let me just walk through that again, just in case you didn't get it. So go up here to the magnifying glass, go to SQL Server Object Explorer. It's going to create this little widget right here, whatever you want to call it. Go here to the green Add SQL Server. While you have that up, this is getting a little confusing, I understand. Go back to your SQL Server Management Studio, but this is the only easy way I know how to do it. And then go to your properties and get the server name right here. Then copy it, go back to Visual Studio. Then paste that into the server name, and then Pokemon Review, and connect to it. And it's going to go ahead and connect to your database. And yep, we got it right here. So click under here, go to your databases, go to your Pokemon Review, wait till that little thing stops spinning right there. You can tell I've done this so many times that I've gotten used to it. And then you don't even need to do any Googling. Like I said, drop a like down below, because I've never seen anybody else do it that way. It's super confusing to figure it out any other way, and you've got your connection string right there. So once you've got your connection string, the next thing that you want to do is you want to actually type in to, let me see here. Go to your app settings JSON right here. Type in connection strings. Make sure it's plural. And then go down to here, type in connection. And we will close that right there. And then go ahead in here and paste in your connection string, just like that. And you don't really have to worry about security, since it's just like a local thing because there's no actual password involved. You will have to worry about security once you get to, like, if you're actually deploying it. But I don't know if maybe if this app goes really good, I might deploy it, but I don't think so because it's just kind of like a toy app at this point. But you can deploy it if you want to. Okay, so next thing that we want to do is we're going to have to bring in Entity Framework through something called a NuGet package. And if you're familiar with NPM and if you're familiar with Python modules, it's going to kind of be the same exact concept. So what you want to install, and I don't think I've installed it yet. You want to install Microsoft Framework SQL Server, and it will install all this other stuff too. So you don't actually have to worry about installing Entity Framework Core, and just go latest stable version right here, and then, yep, just accept it. Then go in here and then go to your design, actually do the design. You want that as well too. And a lot of times it just shows up just kind of on its own, but if it doesn't show up on its own, you can just go up here and type in SQL Server, and then you can do design as well too. So you can just do design, and both of them will show up. So relatively easy, and that's going to change that. So once you install SQL Server, it's going to go into your package and it's going to add it to your CS proj. So we have our connection string set up. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm actually just going to close out of all these tabs right here. This is like getting unwieldy. We've got everything pretty much good to go on that end. Next thing that you want to do is we want to create a folder called data, and we're going to create something that's called a data context. So a data context is going to be what brings in all of this information and allows you to kind of manipulate it in. It's going to tie all of your database tables together, and it's going to give you this thing called a context to where you can quickly access all of your tables, and you don't actually have to worry about, where's your data coming from. So go in here and create a new, you could call it whatever you want to, but this one we're just going to call it a data context. So we just call it a data context. We need to inherit from the DB context. So DB context is going to be brought in from actually Entity Framework. This doesn't exist on your this doesn't actually exist within the base.NET. You actually have to bring this in. So if you don't bring it in correctly, it will always show up red, and you'll see here it says Microsoft Entity Framework Core. And if you don't bring in Entity Framework Core correctly, it won't be able to bring it in. So make sure that you go back and pay attention to the installation process. If you mess up the installation process, that will not go correctly. So we're going to go into here, going to bring in our options, and then we're going to, IntelliSense is going to bring in our base. So what's happening, what a base is, if you don't know what base is it's going to shove all of this data that's going to be received from the outside class up into the DB context. So just think of it as like you're just pushing data up into your DB context, where you're inheriting, and it's going to shove all of that into Entity Framework Core. You probably don't need to know that, but it's kind of, it's interesting, I guess. So go in here, we're going to, the next part that we're going to do is we're actually going to tell the context what all our tables are. So go here. Yep. So we're going to actually bring in all of our models, aka tables, whatever you want to call them, to our DB context. And DB set is just entity framework. This is the only time you'll ever see the word DB set is when you are doing the data DB context. And just by convention, they pluralize this. So this is by convention, these words right here are always going to be pluralized. So go in here, go prop, DB set, going to bring in our owner, then we bring in our owners, then go in here, DB set, Pokemon. And I'm not going to, I've really pondered calling this Pokemons, but that is not really the correct, you could call it Pokemons, but I don't think that that's the correct way of pronunciation for Pokemons. If you're a Pokemon expert and you know whether the plural form of Pokemon is correct, please drop that down below because these are questions that need to be answered. All right, so go down here, and then we're going to bring in our cool Pokemon owners. Then we're going to go to the next one. We need to bring in our other DB set Pokemon category. Pokemon categories. And IntelliSense is going to do that for us. Then we have our review. And reviews. Then we go down here and we're going to have our reviewer. Reviewers. Awesome. But bad thing is we're not done yet. Maybe not the bad thing, because you're going to learn another important part. So remember when I said that join tables or many-to-many tables can't be, or they can be abstracted a lot, but for this case we're not going to abstract them. For this one, for many-to-many tables, I still think that you have to use this on model creating. So in certain scenarios, whenever you set up Entity Framework and you do the Entity Framework context, you have to manipulate your tables in certain ways, and you have to almost add like you have to customize your tables sometimes. And on-model creating is going to be how you actually go in and customize your tables without having to go into the database, because a lot of things that you want to do, a lot of times you want to have the customizations in your code because people will know what customizations that you did, and there are certain scenarios when actually manipulating your database in the code is going to be a lot more advantageous, and this is going to be one of them. And this is going to be kind of confusing. Doing entity framework many-to-many relationships, I don't even think you can abstract this away, and doing these is actually really kind of complicated, so make sure you pay attention. It's not that it's that complicated, it's just a lot of code, and the code is very similar to them. I can't really explain it. The code is just very similar, and it's just can be very confusing to implement these. So make sure that you've got all of these looking correct. So, and just make sure to double check it. That's a better way of putting it. So go in here, we've got these. This is going to tell Entity Framework, hey, we need to link these two IDs together. Otherwise, Entity Framework's not going to know that you want to link these two IDs together, and the relationship's not going to actually exist. So we'll go here, model builder dot entity, and then we're going to have Pokemon category because we're only manipulating our many-to-many. We're not manipulating anything else. Going to go has one, then p is equal to p.pokemon. We're going to actually link the entities and not just the entity ID. With many, it's going to tell Entity Framework that this is a many-to-many relationship, which is pretty cool. And we're going to go Pokemon categories. Then we're going to go down here and link the foreign keys together. Has foreign key, C. Sometimes IntelliSense can be not a blessing because it is going crazy. Sometimes it goes crazy and just wants to autocomplete things. All right. C dot category. All right. Then go down here. Then we're going, so we have think we have to do one. Yep. Let's see. Model builder. Actually, let's just go down here and go here and paste this, because these are going to be so similar that it would be a waste of time to actually go through. So just change this one to category. So category, leave the Pokemon categories, and then our category ID is good. And we need to change. I actually got this one messed up. Mess that one up. Please make sure to fix that one. Like I said, these many-to-many relationships are like, they look so similar that they can just confuse the ever-living, you know, shit out of you. All right, so go down here. Then we're going to kind of clean this up because this looks like doo-doo. All right, great. So we need to change, because this is the owner, we need to change this to owner. Then we're going to change this to owner because we're doing the owner join table. And just PO, we're just going to make these ones PO. Make it look a little bit better. Then I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to change these. Pokemon owners. Pokemon owner. I'm going to change this one to owner. Then we're going to change this one to owner. And it's not, to be honest with you, it's not totally pivotal that you understand all of these. It's really more important that you could copy and paste this into the on-model create at this point, that you could just copy and paste this into the on-model creating, and it will create it for you. And you can just get the relationship right. You'll drive yourself nuts trying to understand like half that. And it's not really even that important anyway, because you don't really even need to. You just need to get the many-to-many relationship going on, and that's pretty much all you need to do. So next thing is we have to get our program file set up. So the program file, what you're going to do is you're going to bring it in down here. So we're going to do builder services dot add, I think it's add SQL server. Or no, it's add DB-context. We're going to add our DB-context. Nope, not that. Go here. Add DB-context. And then we're going to add our DataContext. We need to bring in our actual one that we created, that we just created a little bit ago. Go there. Okay. I just haven't. I was wondering why there was red squigglies. All right, go in here and then go type in options, use SQL Server. And if you want to, you could literally bring in anything that you wanted. You could bring in Postgres, you could do any type of database, but for just kind of like job purposes, I always recommend using SQL Server because that's what really everybody's going to want you to use. So not done yet. We need to bring in our connection string that we created too. We can't forget our connection string, right? So get connection string. And this is actually going to kind of reach into our app settings JSON and pull out our connection string. And it's going to do literally do our connection string for us. Okay, so we have two things left to do. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do what's called seeding a database. When you seed a database, it's kind of just like the way it sounds. It's almost like you're like planting seeds inside of it, but really all you're doing when you're seeding is you're just making a little script, and we're going to make a script that's going to populate our database with data beforehand, because if you try to populate, I've done this before where you try to populate, just create a class that's called seed, by the way. We're just going to put it into the root of our app. And really all you're doing when you're seeding is you are writing a script that's going to pre-populate the database with data. And you do this because it's just easier. It's actually going to be more time consuming, especially if I just made the script for you. Just go to my GitHub and go to the seed file in my actual app in the GitHub and just copy everything down word for word and you should be good to go. Just make sure there's no red squiggles in it. Then you want to go over here and you want to inject this into the program file. So really all this boils down to is you're going to wire it up with something called dependency injection. Big word for just basically meaning we're just going to bring this into the program file. Like that's like all that really means. And we're going to go seed. You may be wondering what add transient is. Add transient is going to add the injection at the very beginning. You have add scope too, and you'll see examples of add scoped here in a little bit. We'll talk about add scoped, but just realize that add transient is just going to add it it's going to add that object at the very beginning, and that's it. So go in here, and you can also, I've got this line of code. We're going to, if you want to, you can copy this down if you want to, but you could also just go to my GitHub and type this out. Just make sure that it's below the app, because if it's not below the app, it will give you like red squiggly lines. And yeah, just make sure that this part is added right here, and that's all you're going to need. There's no real reason to actually explain any of this, what this is. There's no real reason to learn any of it. It's just you're injecting this service into it, and it's going to seed the data context before the actual app, before the app starts. And it's going to do so with with arguments when you actually start the app. So first thing is that we are going to have to actually create our database. So first thing is we're going to have to actually do the add migration. And really what you want to do when you do a migration, what a migration is it's going to create the code that's going to write all the SQL queries for the database. So in Entity Framework, amazingly enough, you don't have to actually even know any SQL. You don't have to know like a lot of SQL query to get a lot done. You will have to know some SQL once you actually start working a job, but for the most part, you really don't even need to know that much SQL, because Entity Framework is going to do a lot of that for you. And the way that it does it is doing this add migration. So let me go here. I have to actually delete this. If you have a migration folder already, make sure to delete it, but most people don't have it already because they're like I said, they're still building their app. And go in here, let's make sure your database is running, and make sure you don't actually have another database in there that's with that name, because it'll throw an error as well too. So go in here, go to your package, make sure you're in Package Manager console. If you don't know how to get to Package Manager console, just type it up here where that magnifying glass is, and you should be good to go. So here's the moment of truth. Migrations screw up a lot, so we may, this thing might screw up. Hopefully it doesn't, but here goes the moment of truth. Fingers crossed. And we're not out of the woods just yet. So like I said, this is all the code, and you can kind of see what it's doing. It's creating all these tables for our database, and we can go in here and you see it hasn't actually added the database. You would think it's added it to the database, but what you have to actually do is you have to run another command. You have to go down here and you have to do update database, and this is actually what's going to create the database. And this can mess up too, so let's cross our fingers. Please work, please work. Okay, thank you God, it worked. If you get an error, most likely what has happened is you may have spelled connection string wrong. So make sure that it's connection strings. You have this right here. You have the default connection spelled like this. Your connection string is going to be different because it's on a different computer, obviously. And make sure that you have a comma after that. Otherwise, you will get an error. So the next thing that we have to do is we actually have to run the database seed. So we're going to go up here. We're going to type in terminal because we have to run this in .NET Run. So we're going to go to terminal. And I'm sure that there's another way to do this, but the only way that I know how to do this is in the terminal. So type in dir, and we're not in the right folder. So we're going to cd, just type in cd Pokemon review app, and we're going to cd into this folder. Make sure that your folder looks like this. If your folder doesn't look like this, it's not going to work, and it's going to give you an error saying that it can't find the csproj file. So make sure that you are in the right folder, .NET Run, and then we're going to type in seed data, just like this. And another moment of truth. I really hope this works, because if this messes up, this is really hard to fix, but fingers crossed. Thank you, God. I think that everything works. So let's go in here. It ran all the queries, and we're going to make sure that our data, number one, our database actually shows up and it's actually seeded all of our data. So we're going to go through each and every one, that make sure that it's seeded correctly. Okay, so we have electric, water, leaf, and we're going to go to countries. Kanto, Saffron, Millet-Town. These names. Then we have our owners of the Pokemon. We have Jack London, Harry Potter, Ash Ketchum, and then their gyms in the foreign key. Make sure you also have your foreign key. Then we're gonna go to Pokemon. We have Pikachu, Squirtle, Venusaur. Then we're gonna go to Pokemon categories. We have our join table. It's looking good. We have our Pokemon owners. We have our reviewers, and then we have our reviews. Awesome. We have successfully seeded our database. Our database is ready to go. We are all hooked up. We can actually finally start building our API. Whew. That one was a doozy. I'm actually really tired after that one. That one was kind of stressful, but hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for watching.